has made time to join us. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Lola Magara. I'd like to also in absentia recognize that we will be joined by Major General Henry Masiko, the UPDF Chief Political Commissar, the Dean of Students, staff and students of Makerere University, all the great alumni who have joined this conversation here physically and also following virtually on the YouTube channel, and all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all of you students, welcome. So we're here convened to celebrate the legacy and remembering a great man, Kwame Nkrumah. And it's only fitting that we're joined in this conversation by an equally great man, the Right Honorable Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda. And for me, hosting this conversation is such a great privilege for so many reasons, which you will understand a bit later. But for now, I'd like to start our program by inviting Mr. Chinkumu Isaac. He's the chairman of Nkrumah Hall. I was going to attempt to do the Makerere Oye and the culture, but I don't have the figure for that. So Isaac is going to help me to do that after his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Musi. I will start with respecting the Makerere culture and the North Cat culture. Let us stand up for the culture. Emakerero, 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 uwe, 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 uwe. Emakerero, Emakerero, Enos Koto, Enos Koto, Nkrumah, Ensibiro, Nkrumah, Ensibiro, Osajefo, Emaitoli Popo, Ra, Cha, A, Eata Kingo, Eata Kingo. Nkrumah Hall, we shall always move forward. We shall work together for success, even when we meet some tribulations. Activists forward, we esteto, officers and men know, attacking go. Oh Lord, you know, I am a bachelor boy to summer holiday. My Lord, Ewaluapako, facing the mighty popo. Aluapa, we shall remain united in the park. We either win. Activists, thank you very much. Our guest of honor, Right Honorable Dr. Ragana Rukunda, Major General Masiko in his absentia, Chairperson Council, the representative of the Vice Chancellor, the Dean of Students, our guests, activists, statesmen, gallant Makererians, good afternoon. I welcome you all to the annual Nkrumah Day celebrations. Together we are here to celebrate the platinum jubilee of the existence of Nkrumah Hall. Nkrumah Hall was opened in 1954 as part of Northcote Hall. So we gather together to celebrate the existence of Nkrumah Hall through the annual Nkrumah Day celebrations. The annual Nkrumah Day celebrations commenced last year as an idea from with the students, leaders, and even our whole administration. And last year we started with visiting and helping the needy and having several celebrations around the hall. So this year, we continued with the same energy to continue and celebrate the legacy of our Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So the people who are here who might not be knowing what Nkrumah Hall is, Nkrumah Hall is one of the halls of residence in Makerere University, and it houses over a given number of students, over 400. And Nkrumah Hall, first of all, according to what I know, it's the best hall in Makerere University. And according to what we see, Nkrumah Hall has nurtured a given number of people. Nkrumah Hall has mentored leaders. Nkrumah Hall has mentored educators. Nkrumah Hall has mentored inventors. And it will continue to do so through its different hall activities, its well-structured leadership, its social activities, the solidarity, and even the different opportunities that are around the hall. So for this year's celebrations, with the SCR members, together with the whole administration, we agreed to have the Nkrumah public lecture that we are having today. And the aim of this Nkrumah public lecture was to reflect on the contributions of Kwame Nkrumah on the Pan-Africanism and how his vision can inspire the current efforts towards the United Africa. We thank the whole administrators, led by Dr. Rejema Rodin, our warden, and the principal warden of Makerere University, and the freshest PhD holder as an activist. We thank him very much for the efforts. So we thank the whole administration for the different forms of guidance they have given us, the support, both financial and physical, and we thank them very much. We thank the student leaders. We thank the senior common room of Nkrumah Hall, the SCR members who are around, they can wave around. Oh. We thank the Students' Guild and even the other leaders in the different capacities for organizing, managing, and even mobilizing for this function. We thank you very much. And as it's our obligation every year that we have Nkrumah Day celebrations, we dedicated that something new has to be done when we are having Nkrumah Day celebrations. And during this year's celebrations, we are having the public lecture. We have had a new look of our airport. I think we shall pass by and you have a look. And even so many other things that are coming. We thank the SCR and the whole administration. During these Nkrumah Day celebrations, what do we take home? Nkrumah, first of all, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was a visionary leader who was there in the 20th century. He was the first president of Ghana and even the founder of the Pan-African movement. He had commitment to independence, and his efforts led to the foundation of Africa's growth, emphasizing independence beyond political freedom. He always looked up to a united Africa and Africa free from all forms of colonization. So as we reflect on his contributions, we remember his belief in the power of education, self-reliance, economic diversification, infrastructure development, and innovations. So we as the youth in the 21st century, what are we taking home? I urge each and every one of us, first of all, to aggressively undertake their education, coupled with innovation, research, skill development, and over-border performance. To our governments, I think our governments should strategize and look for a way of strengthening, first of all, the regional organizations, promoting intra-African trade, strengthening the different systems, health and education system, and making sure that we are having a quality education and ensuring sustainability of the different classes of people in Africa. I believe together we can honor the legacy of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah by striving for a prosperous Africa. Activists forward we move.
Yes, thank you so much, Isaac. Yes, thank you so much, Isaac. I have to ask for forgiveness, breaking a bit of protocol. I forgot to include in the recognition my senior bosses and colleagues, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Henry Arinitwe, and the Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Mukadas Buyinza, who is sitting in for Vice Chancellor. I normally don't do these kinds of events, but today is very significant for me for a number of reasons, so I asked to actually lead. And I must also ask for pardon from especially Dean of Students and Rodney, the warden who's really put all this together, working with the whole student leadership. Because of the significance of the event, we had to quickly come in, but I know you have your all other plans, but we had to participate in this because of the importance of the guest of honor that we are hosting today. So please, I beg your pardon for that. So just to proceed with our program, I would like now to invite the Dean of Students who will make some brief remarks, and then she will invite the Acting Vice Chancellor to make his remarks as well.
The program host for this afternoon. And let me also start with culture. Emma Keroe. Nkrumah. Cha, 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 cha. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here this afternoon. Our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, the Prime Minister Emeritus, but also Special Envoy to the President of the Republic of Uganda, our dear Chairperson of Makerere University Council, Mrs. Lona Magara, our Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Mukadas Buyinza, the Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration, the Chief Political Commissar, Major General Henry Masiko, in absentia, colleagues in the university management, the chairperson of Nkrumah Hall, all our guests and students present here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A warm welcome to this event, the event where we celebrate the Nkrumah Day. But before I begin, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to identify a few persons that are here with us this afternoon and welcome them in a special way. Right Honorable Prime Minister Emeritus, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, our Chairperson of Council, our Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, and all our guests present this afternoon. A pleasant welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We don't take it for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, thank you. And now I turn to my remarks. The name Kwame Nkrumah has stood the test of time. And it's like a horn that sounds beautifully over the African continent and beyond. And it is indeed with great pleasure and deep humility that I stand here before you to welcome you all to this important event, the event that is associated with the great son of Africa. It yet again even gives me immense pleasure as Dean of Students to welcome you all to this event, the event when we mark 70 years of the existence of Nkrumah Hall, and we also celebrate the iconic son of Africa, and most especially on our home ground, Makerere University. Our guest of honor, as you know, Nkrumah Hall, named after the iconic Pan-Africanist, Kwame Nkrumah, is one of the 9 halls of residence at Makerere University, wisely noting that we are also an alumni of this great hall. Thank you. And the name Nkrumah serves as a daily reminder to us Makererians of the views of Kwame Nkrumah, of Pan-Africanism and integration that have united many Africans and also influenced the attainment of independence of several countries. Kwame Nkrumah is a man beyond his own time whose views and intellectual courage are still a beacon of light on this continent. I am very proud and very excited that as we celebrate the Nkrumah Day, focus is on Nkrumah's views of integration and Pan-Africanism, the ideas that Nkrumah cherished, that Nkrumah championed, expounded to address the challenges of our time. We are greatly honored as Makerere University to host this great event and yet again to have our students sit at the feet of this iconic Pan-Africanist to remember first his zeal, his courage, and yet again his commitment to see the challenges of Africa addressed, including leadership challenges, economic dependency, markets for our products, and also lack of Pan-Africanism, including many others. Kwame Nkrumah saw all those things and saw that there was a need to have homebred solutions to address the challenges of Africa in order to have a stable and strong nation. And therefore, this symposium aims first to honor the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah, secondly, to inspire a new generation of leaders to work towards a strong, prosperous, economically and politically strong African nation. By the way, I stand here greatly convinced that this august house is going to inspire our students, the alumni, and the general population to reflect on the contributions of Nkrumah, of integration, Pan-Africanism, and also explore on how to inform and also direct our efforts towards a strong and prosperous African continent. It is with great pleasure to welcome you all guests in your distinguished capacities and remind you that Nkrumah Hall has stood for all these 70 years as a symbol of Makerere University's vision to build not only a strong Uganda, a strong East Africa, but also a strong African nation where we can all have a better place and space to live in and the incoming generations. And as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you to feel at home, to have a very comfortable and productive debate in remembrance of one of the greatest giants of African thought and philosophy. You're welcome as we build for the future. Thank you very much for listening. You know, when you're not used to some of these things, I am sorry. I had forgotten one of my responsibilities. And at this juncture, it is my honor and privilege to invite the Vice Chancellor to speak to us. Vice Chancellor, you're most welcome.
The Right Honorable Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, Prime Minister Emeritus of the Republic of Uganda and Special Envoy of His Excellency the President, our dear Chairperson of the University Council, Mrs. Rona Magala, in absentia, Major General Henry Masiko, UPDF Political Commissar, my colleague, the Dean of Students, Dr. Winnie Kabumbuli, the faculty and students here present, all invited alumni and residents of Nkrumah Hall, distinguished dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. I bring you warm greetings from the Vice Chancellor, Professor Nawangwe, who is away shopping for more collaboration for this institution, but is with you in spirit. I'm very much delighted to join you all in celebrating the legacy and the day of birth of our African icon, as it has been put by Dr. Kabumbuli, the late Kwame Nkrumah. It's for that reason that we are here. The Dean of Students has gone through the history about integration and Pan-Africanism. I will not do much of that, but I want to say that Kwame Nkrumah remains a symbol of African pride. His hope and vision for a united Africa still inspires leaders on the continent, and mostly the pride of the Africans in our heritage and identity. I think this is coming to a reality today. I'm therefore very pleased and encouraged that it was the students, the residents of the great Kwame Nkrumah Hall, who organized this event with the support of the Dean of Students and the Advancement Office of the University. It is an indication that his ideas, his legacy continues to inspire generations even today as we stand here. And for this, we shall be grateful for his contributions and his works for eternity. Our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Ndugu Ruhakana Rugunda, welcome back home. You are welcome to Makerere, but your alma mater, a place which does not only give you fond memories, but even us. For that it has, of course, we are aware that your residence here as a student informed your own growth journey into leadership and the revolutionary ideas that you espouse today. Your own story will be told one day, and in fact, we firmly believe that we be intentional in telling it today, so we can give you our flowers when you are still alive. We want to give you these flowers today and this afternoon. You set a great example of what young people can do in contributing to a better society. As the president of the DEN, National Union of Student Associations, and the student activists against bad leadership, you set a visible example that many are emulating here today. From what we've heard, and myself actually have heard a lot about you and your undertakings then, and maybe we shall learn from you in more detail this afternoon. Makerere was a central point in the struggle that you and many others started, and which has given us the society we live in today. Of course, kind regards to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda, who led the struggle against bad governance in the days in the 1970s, and subsequently the liberation of our country, okay, to which we are indebted to him and all the comrades that followed him. So we are very honored to welcome you back and thank you for honoring the students' invitation to be here and give a public lecture. We in turn also welcome Major General Masiko. We want to welcome you back home to your alma mater and salute your service to this country and for making Makerere proud as an alumnus. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all looking forward to the conversations and the discussions on this important topic that will be delivered by our guest of honor. Mine was to welcome you all and thank you for finding time to join us at this important event. We want to wish you a productive and cordial, enriching afternoon. And I want to thank you. And I will not appease the ancestors, as it has already been done by the student, the Kwame Nkrumah Day. It is therefore my special privilege and honor to invite you, our chief guest, to give the public talk to our students and faculty here present. You are welcome, Dr. Ndugu.
The chair of the council, the acting vice chancellor, deputy vice chancellors, Major General Masco, dean, warden of Nkrumah Hall, chair Nkrumah Hall, and many other distinguished guests who are here, ladies and gentlemen. I feel very privileged to have been given an opportunity to discuss with you issues, life, contribution, vision of Kwame Nkrumah. And I do appreciate the remarks that have been made by the previous speakers, because they have gone to a reasonable degree of telling us who Kwame Nkrumah was and what his contribution has been. I'll just make some comments and also say something about my days at Makerere. I did join Makerere University in 1969. And only last month, my colleagues and I, my classmates and I, met at one of the Kampala hotels to celebrate 55 years after entering Makerere. I must say it was the first reunion that we had, but it had a lot of emotions. It had a lot of thinking, a lot of stories about when we were young, like yourselves at Makerere. And indeed, we did also continue to praise the way Makerere has kept its name, especially in the field of academia and research. And I encourage you to go ahead and add on that reputation. Now, after being admitted to the medical school, I must say I was lucky to be allocated to the then new hall, which is now known as Nkrumah Hall. But it's also worth noting how it became Nkrumah Hall. How did it change? I'll say a word about that. At that time, Makerere was a small university. It had people who were not so many. I think now we are in the range of 40,000 students. It had only a few halls of residence. Lumumba Hall was not there. Africa Hall was not there. It was an East African university, the University of East Africa, and at that material time, our Chancellor was President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, who fortunately was also an old student of Makerere University. So we have therefore seen Makerere transform from what used to be to what it is now, a giant. At that time, almost all the students of the university stayed in the halls of residence. But now, I think a big chunk, perhaps the majority, no, not perhaps, definitely the majority must be staying outside because you do not have enough accommodation. Makerere had a lot of beautiful lawns. I now see that many of those lawns have been replaced by beautiful buildings, like this very one that we are in. The principal of Makerere at the time we came in, he was not the vice chancellor, he was the principal, was Professor Yusufu Rule, who later on became president of Uganda. And he was subsequently replaced by Frank Kalimuzo as not principal, but this time was vice chancellor of Makerere, because Makerere had attained its independence. It was no longer the University of East Africa. It was now an autonomous university. So there was big activism among the students, but reflecting the activism that was both in the country and on the continent. On the continent, this was the period when there was intensification of the struggle, armed struggle, against colonialism, especially Portuguese colonialism and the settler regime in Rhodesia. So Africa was at war for liberation. And the name of Nkrumah was prominent because he was the icon in as far as African liberation is concerned. He was somebody who had put his country at the disposal of the whole continent. So students at Nkrumah Hall, then New Hall, met in the common room. Senior common room? Yes, that's correct. They met and passed a resolution that New Hall is really not a name, that it is high time we gave the hall its proper name. This resolution was passed overwhelmingly, and I'm happy to have been a participant in passing that resolution. And the name Nkrumah was forwarded to the warden and the university administration, and I'm extremely happy that they, in turn, accepted this very deserving name. So that's how the name came about, and I'm glad to see that there is an appropriate statue in front of the hall, again showing this iconic figure that Africa has had. Now, why Nkrumah? Nkrumah, as I said, was at that time at the top amongst African leaders who had been fighting for liberation. Of course, at that material time, he had just been overthrown as president of Ghana, overthrown in 1966. Now this was, I think this resolution was about 1970. But note the significance of Nkrumah, that even when he was overthrown when he was in Hanoi, Vietnam, trying to bring about a peaceful solution on the Vietnamese war between the United States and the Vietnamese people. So, when he decided to come straight away to Africa, and he went to Guinea. When he reached Guinea, President of Guinea, President Sékou declared him co-president of Guinea. This is an honor I have not heard being given to anybody else in the world. You go to take refuge as a country because your role is so deeply appreciated. That country gives you the honor of co-president. And his special duties, the special duties of this co-president, was to champion the cause of African liberation. He had done so before in Ghana, because soon after independence, in '57, a year later, in 1958, Nkrumah organized the All African People's Conference in Accra. And indeed, they resolved to intensify the struggle for independence and for liberation. And as I'm sure all of you know, when Ghana became independent, Kwame Nkrumah made a famous statement. And his statement was that the independence of Ghana would be meaningless unless it was linked with the liberation of the whole continent. This was such a significant statement. Some leaders say things and they do other things. In the case of Nkrumah, he made sure that Ghana was a base, a political and military base, for preparing the African freedom fight to prepare themselves and liberate their respective countries. This, of course, brought some tension between Kwame Nkrumah with some bad and pro-racist regimes, even some of them African. But he remained consistent and continued, and eventually his cause gained momentum. But I should also point out that Kwame was not doing this alone. He was doing it with his party, CPP, Convention People's Party of Ghana, Convention People's Party, with many freedom fighters and Pan-Africanists from the diaspora and also on the continent. And there was mutual influence for each of them to advance in their cause. Who are some of these people that Kwame was collaborating with? Kwame was collaborating with in order to advance the cause of the African people. I'll start with the diaspora. and mention a couple of names. The perhaps most prominent name is that of Dr. Du Bois, who was a leading scholar, I think the first black man to get a PhD from Harvard, to ensuring that the diaspora was connected organically with the people on. Another key guy that they worked with was, they didn't work with, they didn't meet, but Nkrumah was influenced a lot by the mobilization of Marcus Garvey. So there were a number of other names, Sarah James, Padmore, and others. They all focused on working not just in diaspora, but linking the diaspora with what was happening on the continent. The black people in the diaspora were particularly interested in Kwame because Kwame was a vibrant political leader and mobilizer on the continent. And he was more than ready to be a conduit of the diaspora views, opinions, and input on the continent's struggle for liberation. That was the diaspora, but even on the continent, Kwame had collaborators. Who were some of his collaborators? They included Modibo Keita of Mali. They included Gam Abdul Nasser of Egypt. And it's interesting that when Kwame Nkrumah was going to marry, he decided to get a wife from Egypt. This partly illustrates the great commitment that Kwame had in ensuring that the African people, irrespective of whether they are from the north or from the south, were African people and they should be integrated. This was a practical illustration. He, of course, collaborated with Lumumba. Lumumba was there for a short time, but he was a great ally to Nkrumah. So, in a nutshell, friends, we are talking about a great man who made enormous contribution. And in fact, because of his crusade, the Organization of African Unity was formed in 1963. And of course, this is what has now become transitioned to become the African Union. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that we are all talking about is really an offspring of the philosophy of Pan-Africanism, philosophy of African unity that Kwame Nkrumah advocated during those early days when many of the African countries were still under colonial administration. There is a lot we can learn from Kwame Nkrumah, but really what stands out is his vision and commitment to see Africa free, to see Africa independent, to see Africa determining its own destiny, making its own decisions, and also to see African united. Because Nkrumah saw that the colonial masters decided to weaken us, to divide us, in order to exploit us. And indeed, the exploitation I'm talking about is very well known to you, because it started centuries ago, looting our natural resources, minerals and the like. Then it was followed by enslaving our people to develop different parts of the world. Initially it was developing the Middle East, but then the Americas, both North and South America, came in, and Africans were there literally to serve other interests except their own interests. So Kwame Nkrumah, realizing that indeed Africans were just there for exploitation, they will remain to be exploited if they are Balkanized, he pushed the line of Africa must unite. And indeed, he wrote a classical text called Africa Must Unite. And in that book, he passionately articulates a strong case why Africa must remain together. The books and the messages of Kwame Nkrumah, written 40, 50, 60 years ago, are as relevant today as they were then. He warned us against dangers of colonialism, and that's when he published his book, Neo-Colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. I'm happy that in that book, Kwame Nkrumah quotes one of our Pan-Africanists, who is now gone, Comrade Changomacho. Is quoted by Nkrumah in his book on colonialism, illustrating how the energy and efforts of Africa are being drained by hemorrhage of resources through neo-colonial routes, and also by the colonial powers bringing political influence in order to ensure that the decisions that we are taking are not in the interests of stopping exploitation that has been going on for centuries, but for ensuring that the drainage of resources will continue from Africa back to the metropolitan countries. Therefore, I want to take this opportunity to salute Nkrumah Hall and its leadership. For preparing this discussion where concerned people, Africans, discuss, advance, and continue to put light on the vision of our great leader, of our icon, our Pan-Africanist, Kwame Nkrumah. I would recommend that this becomes clearly an annual event to ensure that every year we are putting a torch, putting a light, showing more and more students, more and more people the great contribution of Kwame Nkrumah, and alerting them, reminding them that what Nkrumah advocated, that his diagnosis and his way forward is as valid now as it was in the 1960s when he was still living. I also salute the leadership of Makerere University, because they have created a good enabling environment for symposia and discussions of this nature to be able to take place.
I mentioned earlier that this is a very special moment for me because I've been many of the many young people who have really been enriched in our lives by conversations with the Honorable Rugunda. And yeah, I think my life, which I think is of service and really commitment to a better Africa, that's really what I'm committed to in what I do and how I think. I would really like to say that a great part of it was really strengthened in my thoughts and my ideas, strengthened by the conversations with the Right Honorable Rugunda, and really inspired by the courage, not just, people were still seeing, living and walking. It really makes it possible that you guys who are here, you can dream, you can be inspired, you can imagine things and still be able to achieve these things. Prime Minister Rugunda didn't start as Prime Minister. His story is from, if you allow me to say this, sir, wearing cow hides, a cow hide to hide his private parts, to go to school almost 15 kilometers away, and the story of his friends and how they did that trek to find education, to get education, and to later on really be part, as young people, be part of this incredible story, get the attention of the President Obote at the time, to be mentored by him, but also for him to seek counsel from you as young people. This is almost unheard of. So Prime Minister Rugunda has such an incredible story that can be very inspiring for you. And that's why many people refer to him as Ndugu. Ndugu is a Swahili word that means comrade or brother or ally. And so we all know you as Ndugu. And I personally have such a great appreciation for everything, and mostly for your inspiration and all the things you've helped me to do. Sorry, it's very personal. But I'm going to ask, someone took my program, but I'm going to ask that I break protocol, Chair of Council, and I want to suggest that we skip the, the performance which was going to come. And before Matsiko comes, the Chair of Council will close our session. But I would like this, the commitment to this legacy by Prime Minister Rugunda is not just demonstrated by what we just shared, him being able to have this lecture without even referring to notes and his involvement in the whole. But there's also one person in this room who has both the names. He kept on saying Kwame, Kwame, right? You heard him say that. But there's also one person in this room who has both the name of Kwame and the name of Rugunda. So I would like to ask Kwame Rugunda to stand up, and we appreciate this legacy, and for you to come and validate how you have the name of Rugunda and Kwame. So we'll request you, Kwame, to come and make a few comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Awel. I happen to have the name of both gentlemen on this picture, maybe because of a coincidence in history. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kwame Rugunda. I happen to be a son of this gentleman, and I happen to have been named because of the inspiration of that gentleman. So therefore, Dr. Rugunda, who was here speaking a few minutes ago, is not just theoretical about the subject of Pan-Africanism and Kwame Nkrumah, but absolutely practical, as is evidenced by the person speaking to you right now. So he chose to name his firstborn son Kwame after the great man, Kwame Nkrumah. I'll just make a few remarks. I was not on the program, but since I've been invited, I'll just make a few remarks. First of all, it's to thank Dr. Rugunda for that remarkable series of stories that have been shared, but also for the bold decision. Because if it wasn't for the decision that they made, we would now be gathered here to celebrate New Hall Day or something like that, or New Day. But because of that bold decision they made as young people, we are gathered here today to celebrate Nkrumah Day. So I'd really like to thank Dr. Rugunda for that. The other thing I'll say is, what is our responsibility as a younger generation? I think that the responsibility we carry is to carry on the work, to carry on the foundation that was laid by the generation of Africans that came before us. Earlier, Dr. Rugunda mentioned that Kwame Nkrumah really was the father of Pan-Africanism. But Kwame Nkrumah was also picking the baton from a previous generation of Africanists who championed the ideas of Pan-Africanism. He spoke about several other Africans in the diaspora primarily, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and so on, who were gathered together and continued gathering together to advance the African cause. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah picked the baton from that group and led the independence of Ghana, 6th March 1957. A year later, organized the conference that Dr. Rugunda was talking about, the All Africa People's Conference in 1958, and continued in that work. But he, in turn, after receiving the baton, as a great runner on the cause of Pan-Africanism, in turn handed it over to another generation. And that is the generation of the Dr. Rugundas that we are celebrating today. The generation of our president, President Yoweri Museveni, and the various African leaders. What our task is as a younger group is to in turn receive this baton and carry forth the great task of advancing the African cause. as Dr. Rugunda told us, there is nobody interested in our interests as Africans except ourselves. Nobody, I can assure you, around the world, wherever they come from, is as interested in your own destiny as yourselves. And so we cannot look, it was actually Nkrumah who said this, we cannot look to the west or to the east, but we look forward. That was Nkrumah. In other words, oh yeah, no yeah, no yeah. Activists, forward we move. I love that. So our task, ladies and gentlemen, as a younger generation of Pan-Africanists, is to continue adding our voice, adding a brick onto that struggle, onto that continuous struggle of our destiny, onto that continuous struggle of our unity, onto that continuous struggle of Pan-Africanism. If there is one thing that we should be able to take away, ladies and gentlemen, from our time here today, it is to make sure to learn from those who went before us and play our role in taking our continent forward. I thank you so much.
Ndugu, it seems the revolution is not yet dead. Thank you, Kwame, for that passionate contribution. Thank you very much. So I think now we can proceed with our program. We've been joined by, in the midst of when we had started, we're joined by Major General Henry Masiko, who is the UPDF Chief Political Commissar, and we got another comrade a younger comrade of Dr. Rugunda. Again, through storytelling, I learned the connection between yourselves and how this intergenerational engagement, it's been incredible learning from you, sir. And so we also learned a story of your relationship and what happened at Kigezi Butovere when you were a student at Kigezi, no, Butovere High School or Kigezi High School? It was Kigezi High School. So we learned that story, and it's quite inspiring how the two generations were able to come together to support this activist spirit that Jonathan, you're championing. So pleasure to welcome you, sir, the Fande Major General, to give your remarks. Thank you.
The chief guest this evening at the public lecture, the Right Honorable Ndugu Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, Prime Minister Emeritus, the Chairperson, Makerere University Council, the Vice Chancellor, your deputies, the wardens, the warden of the Great Hall, the SCR leadership. I hope you are still called chairperson or president? Chairman. The resident of Osajefo, the resident in Osajefo room, all the young people of this great university, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I must say I'm very, very sorry that I did arrive after the senior leader, but I was in the field, and where I was, the jam was incredible. But I was rushing to ensure I join you in celebrating this historic day I quarreled a bit with the organizers. There is some enthusiastic person who was on my back, and when he communicated, he told me, you are going to be among the discussers. I said, how do I discuss a paper of my senior? I said, protocol, you are really putting me in a very difficult situation. He said, we found a way, but when I looked at the program, I still found that they left me in that complicated situation. But I beg to say I allowed that mishap in the protocol because I know the person who is involved is not the person who would be very much offended, because I have had opportunity where he even at one time gave me, but next time be careful, you may not get a ndugu, you may get a very sensitive person. So with that permission now, I proceed and I will make my presentation to add my voice to those who commented about the chief guest. The chief guest is modest, like most revolutionaries, but he should have told you that he single-handedly championed the struggle of changing that ambiguous name of a hall that was really being annexed to a very degrading name, because it was being called a new hall because it had been an extension of the old hall in the name of a colonial name, North Court. Now I don't understand that one, because North Court, as you hear, it's not Nkrumah, it's not Lumumba. So they were not amused that even when a new structure was put in place, it would just be New Hall of North Court. So they rebelled and asserted independence with a revolutionary name. And the old timers started a derogatory narrative that we were that hall was a rebel, and they were always calling it the Kabinda Kabinda enclave. So those who want to know the story, that's how the chief guest led that revolutionary rebellion to send a message. And while he was doing it here at Makerere University, his comrade who was at Dar es Salaam University was busy also destroying a very ridiculous culture where university students would mock poor people by observing what they called Rag Day. Imagine young people getting buses from a university to go to the city to pretend to be poor, that they are in solidarity with beggars and poor people. So the young Yoweri Museveni also led a rebellion there. How did he do it? The buses which were supposed to take those mocking group, imagine they are going for solidarity with the young people, I mean with poor people, they go in buses. What a contradiction and what a mockery. So what he did with his other revolutionary comrades, they woke up at night and deflated all the tires of the buses. Like you go to the estate down there, and so these unserious characters who wanted to go to town found in the morning the buses' tires were flat. And all of them arrived at the conclusion. They said, this must be Yoweri Museveni who has. And they accused him. They even went to President Nyerere here. And when President Nyerere heard about it, he said, what happened? Somebody sabotaged our program of going to observe our rag day. So I think President Nyerere had never taken interest. So when he asked the details, he said, you mean that's what you've been doing? He praised the revolutionary group, and I think henceforth banned that day from the calendar of the university. So this what Kwame was calling our older generation, wherever they were, they made impact. They had to demonstrate that we need to move away from a state of being degraded, a state of subservience, to asserting ourselves and claiming our dignity. So that's one. Two, I don't know the organizers choosing that I speak on the day when Ndugu is the chief guest, because myself, I must tell you that I would be not here, I would not be the general I am if it was not for the mentorship of, single-handed mentorship of Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda. I don't know whether he still remembers, when they came from exile after the liberation war against Idi Amin, they came as the vibrant cadres of the new thinking, and they started moving around the schools, mobilizing us, because I was that time in senior 6. And that time he didn't come himself. He sent another group. It included his brother, the late Sabiti, may his soul rest in peace, and the young Amanya Mushega. I remember the two, but there were other cadres who came and talked to us. And they were telling us what post-Amin era meant. And they really intrigued us. When they left, as young people, we literally wanted to take the guidance practically, in literal terms, because they were telling us, you can move things, you can do this. So the weekend after they had left, we organized to go to town and force the district commissioner to lower the prices and stop magendo. Magendo was smuggling. And when we were doing it, the other younger people in town who are not necessarily, who were not inspired by what we were doing, were also getting ready. You know, these people, the ghetto people. So when our plan was about to mature, we learned that there is going to be havoc in the town. And we were dissuaded from that first practical, from the theory we had received from the cadres sent by the likes of Dr. Rugunda. But we kept on. Soon after that, then we made it a little closer. So we struggled against the school authority. And among those who got victimized, I was #1 on the list. And Dr. Rugunda was a big person in the government of the day. And we used the linkage of the one who incited us to him to send a message to the president, the then President Binaisa, to intervene in our cause. So I got saved from being totally dismissed from school life through the intervention of Dr. Rugunda, who who briefed the president, and the president sent a directive that those young people must not be mistreated. So I don't know where I would be if they would chase you. There were very few schools. Maybe I would be now, I don't know where. So that's how our journey starts. And I think from that time he piqued interest and he encouraged me. I want to end the one nasty thing of initiation. When the Uganda Patriotic Movement was launched, he commissioned us. But the area where we were being commissioned was very, very hostile. They were an area where sectarian politics was still very, very strong. DP and UPC. And if you are Church of Uganda, you are supposed to be UPC. If you are Catholic, you are supposed to be Democratic Party. So we had no room for the third line. So he said, you, Masco and a few others, make sure now you publicize this, the beginning of the new line. Trust me, we were really sent into fire. And to make matters worse, I received the first T-shirt directly from him, a donation, which had the slogan, so that when I am going, everybody sees me as a signpost of a new announcement that a new force is starting. And I have never looked back. Thank you, Ndugu, for the mentorship. And I've always felt humbled and really among those who admire the workings, the leadership style. And one thing Dr. Rugunda should be, let him hear it when he's here. He is the chief commander against politics of identity. I think some other people talk about it, but I don't think there is anybody who has ever confronted that ugly politics of identity, where people believe that you cannot do anything about divisive politics. The story, there are many, but let me tell you this one. When we came in after 1986, I thought he was already a member of the National Resistance Central Committee. But what surprised me, I heard he was going for elections of expanded National Resistance Council. Now, the notables in Kabare who respected him came begging him. They told him, Doctor, we don't want to lose you because Kabale is purely Catholic. There is no way you will defeat a Catholic in Kabale municipality. What do you do? Shift. We shall help you. You shift to the neighborhood. Imagine telling him to abandon his home simply because there are wrong politics there. So I am told the one who was persuading him was, he looked direct in his face. He was actually a priest. He said, thank you for the advice. Thanks for the great concern that I may lose an election, but don't worry. This struggle is precisely about confronting this unprincipled politics. Precisely, I must not run away from this situation. Let me face it, struggle against it, and show that we have a cause. Because if I run away, it means what we are talking about, politics of unity, will be lip service. And the rest is history, because Dr. Rugunda resoundingly won in that election where everybody thought it was impossible. So I want to salute Dr. Rugunda as the symbol and champion of the practical rejection of politics of identity, which unfortunately is bringing its ugly head once again, and you, the young people, who respect, one, the great man we are celebrating today, but also those who took up the same spirit. You should join Kwame. You have heard what Daddy did. Work. Kazi kwako. In Chigezi, that thing is resurrecting. You need to put on your gumboots and clearly demolish it. We should not go back. So I just wanted to make this disclaimer and salute our senior leader. Ladies and gentlemen, when I saw this as a lecture to remember a great hero, a great Pan-Africanist, what came immediately to my mind is my commander-in-chief, what he has been telling us on such occasions. He said such great people, Nkrumah, Nyerere, Mandela, you can never discuss them just in a just way without linking them to the African story. So the young generation, you need to begin to take interest in the question of Africa. And Nkrumah, I think Kwame Nkrumah is symbolic of this. One, he understood, I think clearly he had understood what befell Africa. Fortunately, he hails from part of Africa that had been those parts of Africa that had shown the glory of Africans. Because when I was studying history, I remember studying the great Ghana Empire. So I am sure he must have been inspired by that fact. Africa, what the president has told us when we are observing such important men, is to remember that Africa is the greatest land in the past and today. Africa is territorially superior to all other parts of the world. Amazing that Africa is 12 times bigger than India. I hope you young people, those facts are on your fingertips. Africa is 4 times greater than the United States of America, greater than China. And that means it speaks to even the enormity of the resources. You can't have such a great, enormous place and you think, resource-wise, it's inferior. That's one. You people, you need, when you are dreaming of running away from this great land, remember we are the greatest. Secondly, we are the cradle. We are the beginning of humanity. All human beings are Africans. I know you, when you are remembering Nkrumah, this fact should resonate. We are the cradle of humankind. Or so many millions of years, all human beings only existed here in this part of the world, the Great Lakes region, particularly also what you can call Uganda. Thirdly, Africa pioneered civilization because of being great, being the first. When you hear of the Ghana empires, the Mali empires, the Timbuktu civilization, that should be a stark reminder. However, in the last just 600 years, Africa now is at the tail of the ladder of development. We are now regarded the most backward, the most marginalized, the most despised. That's a contradiction. And this is what intrigued heroes like Kwame Nkrumah and his compatriots. How come Africa, glorious in many ways, is now the last. But they understood. They knew, because of some mistakes, because of some natural challenges, Africa suffered disasters. First disaster, our people being shipped out and enslaved. The slave disaster. All these blacks scattered everywhere were from here. They suffered the most degrading disaster in the world, to be turned into slaves. On the heels of slavery came now the Balkanization of Africa, the colonization of Africa. Africa was shared like a cake and controlled, and its resources plundered. He understood this. And he also understood that independence without addressing the distortions, especially the distortion of division, would be meaningless independence. And that's why, for him, he understood the 4 goals of independence, the 5 goals of independence. Number 1, of course, was to ensure, as the Right Honorable Prime Minister has told you, to ensure that liberation is not a preserve, that Africa must be free. Independence, and their slogan in most places was independence now. And I think one of ours, our own, Ignatius Musazi, had that. The Chango Machos, who he quotes, Chango Macho attended some of the Pan-Africanist Congress, other congresses in London, where their slogan was independence, no compromise, independence now. He understood that as a goal. Having attained independence, people must get self-determination. All these Ndugu has talked about. Independence, real freedom of the people, democracy. Number 3, people not only should they just be free, but they should prosper. He understood it. The prosperity of the people of Africa as an objective of independence. And number 4, reassembling Africa to be one again. And lastly, to recover our dignity, our heritage, our culture, and identity. Those 5, he understood them very well. But he was passionate about the reintegration of Africa. The Right Honorable has told you, as a champion of OAU, his dream, when the meeting took place in Addis Ababa to found OAU, for him, his line was, we must have the United States of Africa now. He wanted one Africa, USA. Now you are over dreaming of USA of the other side. Nkrumah had already proclaimed that we need the United States of Africa. Him. By now, we would be having 2, USA A and USA B. But now we have still remained FSA, Fragmented States of Africa. To remember Kwame Nkrumah, we must really come back to his dream. And he had thought that as they assemble in Addis Ababa, for him he was ready to step down as the president of Ghana, if only other leaders on the continent would agree to form a government in Addis Ababa. I hope I am not exaggerating. For him, he had wanted all people who assembled in Addis Ababa to leave their flags there and raise the flag of African Union and have one president, one army, one government. He could not get it, but at least he got the organization at least. But there is one of his colleagues who at least got a new country from the colonial enclaves, his friend Julius Kambarage Nyerere. For him, he managed to get Tanganyika and Zanzibar and formed a new country, the United Republic of Tanzania. So we should clap for this spirit. So it's possible to have formed a one federal government of Africa. Nyerere proves it because he formed a new country, the United Republic of Tanzania. Up to now, it's there. So Nkrumah leaves behind that challenge to us, that we did not attain that, but the spirit has continued through, of course, those who were young, like Dr. Rugunda, they are still harping on that vision. The reality of it, I imagine, why not? Maybe in your lifetime, you may enjoy being a commander of the United Forces of Africa, United Army of Africa. And you may be able to serve under the federal government of Africa. That dream should not be seen to be in vain. I have recently been toying with a very wild idea, which I should use this, I think I should use this opportunity to, like I used it to be wild when I was young. Now I want to be a little wild. I want to propose, and this can start, you hear crazy things always started in the university. Rather than sloganeering about things which are not necessarily very useful, why don't you start a crazy thing like Remembrance Month? Month of Remembrance. Month, many months. I am seeing normally when I watch Europeans playing football, there is a period when they are remembering their bad history, their bad thing, how they survived. Africa, if we are to be serious about integration, Right Honorable, I am thinking, why don't we start something symbolic? We declare November to February when these Europeans sat in a meeting. They sat for 4 months in Berlin. 4! Discussing and disagreeing how to cut Africa and share it. A month of disaster for Africa. None of the African ancestors was in that meeting. Europeans sat in Berlin. They would disagree, have adjournment. I want to take this part. I want to take this part. Some would walk out. And that's how Germany eventually staged the war. They were not happy in the... So the meeting took November, December, January, and the final agreement was in February. So why don't we declare these 4 months as African Month of Remembrance, where we preach and castigate the outcomes of Berlin Conference? Because I think that's when these Africans can wake up, to know that there was a disaster. People sat negotiating for 4 months how to cut us in 2 pieces, to make Moscow in a different republic, another Moscow in another republic. Kiptegei in one republic, Kiptegei in another republic. Ouma in one republic, to cut us in 2 pieces. So it may appear very, but I think me as a mobilizer, it could be a funny thing for Europeans to see for 4 months Africans wearing black ribbons on their shoulders and declaring that those months are for remembering. We are remembering the disaster that took place in Berlin. I don't know how many years now. You know, this Berlin is a very, very, very disastrous city. One, Germany had just fought and united. For them, they fought for Pan-Germanism, that German should not be divided. Immediately they united, they supervised a meeting to dismember Africa. But those who believe in God like me, God is always on the side of Africa. He sent them a small punishment in 1945. The same Berlin was divided. And not the divisions of ours where a river separates the so-called, makes boundaries. They put a wall, a brick wall. Have you ever heard that Berlin was divided? And for I don't know how many years, they were East and West Germany. But for them, they woke up and broke the wall. Africans, since 1884, I don't know how many years are these now, we are not bothered about, there are no bricks. For us, we have nothing even to break. So young people, kazi kwenyu. Let's start symbolically by condemning the month in which Africa was. I think that would send us asking, but if we are unhappy that divisions took place, then what should we do? I normally hear words like porous borders. Who told you there is a border which is porous? Porousness means there are holes in the border, but there is no. These are artificial, imaginary colonial lines in your heads. And you call them porous borders. I want to end by again being very controversial. You imagine, we now have East African community. From Mogadishu to Kinshasa, isn't it? I recently visited a refugee camp, and the commandant showed me the list. Who are your refugees? 3/4 Congolese. Next, Burundi. Next, South Sudan. So I said, now, what is refugee about these people? I thought I had a rumor that we are East African community. So, how can members of a community be refugees in their own community? So I am making two, and I see Mama Grace. Mama Grace, I have no right to make you. You are a big woman of African, Pan-Africanism, but you could stand so that these young people know who, again, is on the front line. Grace Kaboyo. So I know I am reporting at the police station. These two things which are eating me up. How can community members be refugees in their own community? This refugee law here must be looked at from Arusha at least. They should say, I don't know what they should call them. Secondly, Remembrance Month. We can get the exact dates. I think the meeting started 25th November. Any historian here who studied the Berlin Conference? I think 25th November to something February of 85. If you did that, I would have participated in honoring Osajefo. Forward, we move. Nkrumah Hall, we shall work together for success. Even when we meet some tribulations, activists forward we never move. You remind me, when I was Minister for Internal Affairs, I read almost a union between Northcote and Nkrumah Hall. Because we used to lose power and Northcoteers would abuse us. Suffer, suffer, suffer. So I went to their platform and addressed them. I said, you people, I am here as Minister of Internal Affairs. They said, of where? I said, oh, never mind, but internal affairs include to ensure we have power. So what we do, since we've told the warden and he's not minding, tomorrow, because we were sharing the mess, tomorrow let's not have breakfast. I can assure you power was repaired that night, and my attempt to cause a union between Northcote and Nkrumah failed. Otherwise, I nearly, so when you sang that one, I remembered our wars and games of those days. Thank you.
Thank you, Afande, for that quite passionate and insightful sharing of your own story about Kwame Nkrumah, but most importantly, with our guest of honor, Dr. Rugunda. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to, we're joined by the Guild President, His Excellency Samba. Yes, he's here. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And I think I saw the former Guild President, His Excellency Robert Maseruka. Is there? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And of course, the chairperson of the Pan-African Women Movement for Women Pan-African Movement, Ms. Grace Kaboyo. You're welcome. So I'd like to now hand over to Dr. Marion Alina, who is going to lead us for another 40 minutes in a conversation on stage with some of the young people. Robert Alina, or rather Marion, Dr. Marion Alina? She's coming? Okay. So we have a panel discussion for the next 40 minutes, and then we'll go into a close. But thank you very much for your patience, for your attentive listening to all the lessons that we are receiving. So as Dr. Marion Alina is coming on stage, I would like to also invite Mr. Oremo Odwe, who is a former resident, current resident student at Nkrumah Hall, and Mr. Roy Sembogo, who is an alumnus and a former resident at the hall as well. So if those two gentlemen can quickly join the stage, and then of course we'd like to invite also Mrs. Grace Kaboyo, who is joining us on stage. Thank you very much.
All right. Yes, why don't we stand up a little bit? Just stretch a bit. Just, yeah, stretch a bit. We... Okay. Thank you very much. I've been given 40 minutes, and I've been told to finish at 4:45. Kwame Rugunda, you didn't tell us. Stand up a bit one more time. This dress code, which of the two men does it pick from? The dress code. Who wore the jeans and who wore the Kaunda suit?
So this is a combination of ancient and modern. So Kwame Nkrumah, as you know, quite well used to wear African outfits. And I don't see any need for us to continue importing outfits from the rest of the world. It's about time we as Africans began wearing our own outfits and exporting them to the rest of the world. Thank you.
All right, thank you. May I invite Right Honorable Dr. Grace Kabayo to join the panel. She's the Secretary General, Pan-African Women's Organization, a Senior Presidential Advisor on Special Duties, and a member of the Pan-African Union. You're very welcome. I have Oremo Odwe. Oremo, raise your hand. Oremo is the 88th GRC from Nkrumah Hall, 89th Guild Presidential Candidate, Makerere University. And on the other, you can read more about him. I may not go over his CV or all of it. Roy Semboga says he's a Ugandan student leader and physician who served as the 82nd Honorable Rugunda. They are trying to do what you did then. Yeah, they are trying to change names of things around here. That's the way. So Roy Semboga is a Ugandan student leader and physician who served as the 82nd Makerere University Guild President from 2015 to 2016. He says he's a father and a husband. Is she here? Oh, Madam, we salute you. Could we have a bottle of water for the panelists? I want to start by appreciating the keynote address by Right Honorable Dr. Rugunda. Thank you very much for walking us back in time and sharing your inspirations. And I also want to thank Major General Henry Masiko for what you have shared and calling on us to really dedicate 4 months of remembrance. Luckily, you're seated to the, next to the Chairperson Council, Mrs. Lona Magara, and if she wishes, that can be actualized starting next month. So, ladies and gentlemen, our panel is here, and in our 40 minutes, I will move away from the panel and also try to engage a bit of the audience. We have been told, and I'm glad that we have a fair representation of what you'd call Gen Zs and somebody from a different generation. I want to start by asking, our theme today says, Kwame Nkrumah's vision, our reality, integration, and Pan-Africanism in the 21st century. I'll start with Honorable Kabayo and ask you, as of 2024, what would be your idea on how we can reconcile Kwame Nkrumah's vision with our reality? And Honorable Rugunda was kind enough to tell us that his vision was of a commitment to see Africa free, to see Africa independent and determined, and Africa in a position where it determines its own destiny, but also to see Africa united. you might have more to what his vision entailed, but as of 2024, how do we reconcile that vision with our reality?
Thank you very much, our moderator, our guest of honor, my brother the General, our hostess, the Nkrumah Hall, and everybody here. I must confess I was slightly ambushed, but it's perfectly okay because I'm speaking to something I love passionately, and I'll not really go to technicalities, but reality. And the question apparently is something I would have loved to ask myself. The Africa we see today, with committed people, but committed to diversionary issues, committed to personal issues, as compared to the Africa of their time, where technology wasn't making life easy, even movement wasn't as easy as we have it today. And the challenges we have today as compared to what they had to go through that time. If I pose the question to you, which Africa would you prefer? I'm lucky and humbled to be Secretary General to an organization older than the OAU, which is today's AU. And the questions I'm asking actually are the same questions I ask my fellow women or colleagues at the Pan-African Women Organization. What makes our unity so difficult when our ancestors or those who were there before us were really moving first, committed in oneness, yet the circumstances were very difficult? We had one common enemy against us, the colonizers, who were so powerful, who were so advanced in technology and education. Apart from the will and the commitment and the discipline, Africans were moving very fast and giving us results. Today, it's different. When you talk about people like, if I pick on Uganda, KK Ndugu knows him, the father to the former IGP, who trekked from here to Khartoum to be able to board a plane and go to Egypt. The likes like Mzee Kajabagu, whom most of you might know. And these Nkrumahs, then the Pan-African women themselves who decided to mobilize themselves as far back as 48 and back up the struggle. While the men were focused in front lines and caves, the women remained behind to bridge the gaps, to bury the dead and nurse the sick and feed the families. And yet, they managed to form an organization for all the African women. And in 1962, they managed to meet in Tanzania to be recognized as a sister organization of the Pan-African movement. Today we are specialized agents of the African Union, but to tell you the truth, we walk into these halls as Catholics, as Anglophones, as Francophones, so we must have 5 interpreters, and we are not going to remember that we are all Africans, but the sovereignty has taken over the unity that Comrade Kwame believed in, and which was good for all of us.
So what do you propose?
Therefore, our development, our independence and sovereignty might be actually working against the unity that would make a lot of sense to all of us. May I pause there for a while?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for pointing us to that, to those realities. Honorable, Roy Semboga. Major General Masiko talked of the contradiction we find ourselves in, saying, look, we were the cradle of mankind, and yet right now we are despised as one of those, actually as the continent that lags behind. I want to juxtapose that with the other wins that are before us, the fact that there's more innovations starting at Makerere itself. Professor Buyinza here will tell you that his department, his unit in AR is doing a lot. Juxtapose that also with the technological advancements. We are talking artificial intelligence, we are talking about a lot of social media influence, a lot of young people like yourself being more aware of what they can do. Just a few months ago, we saw what happened in neighboring Kenya. With all that in mind, therefore, what would you say would be a way to harness our realities with that vision of Nkrumah, Honorable Rugunda, and many other Pan-Africanists here and online?
Thank you, moderator, and thanks everybody for coming. I'm sorry my voice is a little bit low because I'm ill. I'm not feeling well, but because it's a very important topic, I decided to come here with my two doctors so that I can have a contribution to this conversation. Think about what you've asked. I'll give an answer using two examples. There's a good friend of mine, a musician. I think all of us know Mudra, right? Mudra. I posted about his concert, and I can tell you I got overwhelming response. Are you going? Should we go together? What do we do? When I got the artwork from the warden about this very conference, I can tell you I got 2 responses out of 780 people who view my status and other social media platforms. One of the, and I'm glad he's here, one of the comment I got, a very young man, he asked me, waliye bikazi?
Please translate that.
Are there women? He's here, he's in this room. The reality before us is clear. Look at this room. If we had a musician in this room right now, let me say Alien Skin here, I can assure you the lecture rooms would be empty. I can assure you Chukumi would be empty, would be having numbers here. So our reality is that the young people are disconnected irrespective of the advancement in technology, irrespective of the innovativeness that Makerere is being proud of. So, from my point of view, there is no direct correlation between the platforms that are available at our disposal and the ideological anchoring of the students or the Gen Zs themselves. From where I stand, partly, I think those in charge have designed a system that way, that the young people are relegated to entertainment, sports, and such conversations, they are not given a platform. To be honest with you, I am shocked. I am shocked that this idea was brought from a young man, the chairperson of Nkrumah Hall. That's what I heard. I am really shocked because such conversations don't come from people like him, but gives me hope that we are taking steps in the right direction. And if we can have more of these conversations, then perhaps, to quote the words of Ndugu Rugunda Kwame, that it is not yet lost, we can still have a direction. So my take is that much as there is this mass electronic means of communication, it is not in tandem with the ideological anchoring and the spirit amongst the Gen Zs, as we would like to call them. It's a question I would also want to pose to the general community. What did the Kwame Nkrumahs do then without social media, without mass communication media, but they were able to pass on the message from the west to the north, to the east, to the south, that the generation currently is not doing, even with such platforms at their disposal. I think I would pause for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Semboga. Roy, you've had the two speakers already. Yes, Oremo, sorry about that. We also had Honorable Rugunda tell us that the diagnosis of Nkrumah and his way forward is as valid today as it was in the 60s. If it is as valid today, and you've had your colleagues saying we need to really tickle out and discover what they did then without all these platforms and different forms, abilities to communicate, what then can you say are those unique attributes you can pick out from the Pan-Africanists and begin to drum them to re-energize the spirit of Pan-Africanism?
Thank you very much, the moderator, Madame Alina, who also happens to have been my teacher sometimes back. I want to first and foremost let everyone in this house to know that Osaje for Kwame Nkrumah, before I answer her question, like Chief Ndugu did put it, disposed himself for the good of the continent. And I want to assure you that everyone in this house, the Gen Zs in this building, we all must find time of self-reflection and make an apology to the great Osaje for Kwame Nkrumah, because he sacrificed himself for the generation that he was mirroring at the time, and that is we in this building. He was very bothered with the Uganda, the Ghana, the Nigeria of today, to the extent that he fell out with most of the technocrats in his country because he stretched his hands, resources, which ideally in shallow minds would do, people who are not ideological enough would say these are ideally resources meant to build our country, Ghana. But Osajefo spread his fingers across the continent, and he fell out with these people, leading to his eventual collapse in 1966 in a coup that was led by Kono Kotoka and his colleagues, who were very, very short-sighted, and they shattered the dreams of Africa. Now answering her question, like he did say, the manner in which Osajefo analyzed the context and the future of the African continent, the prophecies he made in the mid-1950s, in the mid-1960s, are happening as fresh as he said them during that time. Osajefo already knew that by around this time, around 2024, China is going to be in charge of most of the African economies. It's going to take the agriculture sector of African countries. And these are the things happening. And that's why Osajefo in 1963 in February, when they were in Addis Ababa, he turned to the different African leaders who were in that conference that later saw the formation of the African Union. For example, Tafawa Balewa, the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, and told him that we must unite now in this building. And that is what General Masiko was telling you, that he even urged them to drop their flags and leave the building while carrying the African flag. He turned to Emperor Haile Selassie, who was the host, and told him, this scenario is going to be worse than we think if we go beyond today. We must unite today. And I can tell you with no doubt, without fear of contradiction, the prophecies that Osajefo made are happening right now. You can see recently, we had, in fact, it has even gone deeper. The reality is bitter. You saw recently when the people of Rwenzururu attempted to break away from Uganda, and yet we're talking about unity to have Africa as one state. In 1960, there was Katanga secession. A few months after Congo had just gotten independence, Moise Shombe and his foreigners who were instigating him from the ground started a secession movement. These are the things that Osajefo was looking at when he was saying Africa should become one state. No wonder Ghana is probably the only country where up to today you can go to without a visa. But we have remained a fragmented continent. You cannot access Egypt without a visa. You can't go to South Africa. And that's the mystery that Osajefo talked about. We have allowed the foreign powers to come and influence us in all the operations we are doing in the economy, in politics, and everything. So what Osajefo saw, the diagnosis Osajefo made during his time, is as fresh as you see it now, and I want to challenge the young people in here that we can all make a contribution to ensure that we build a block to the dream of Osajefo. This is not the first time the Kwame Nkrumah public lecture is happening. Last year, we had it at Nkrumah Hall, and the majority of you were not there. I am very proud that today, the number is bigger. And I am hopeful that tomorrow, the number is even going to be bigger and bigger. And so, we are making a contribution. Because the most fundamental thing is for a young Gen Z, a young African, a young Uganda to appreciate these realities we are talking about, the dreams that Osajefo had, to have Africa that does not have the imaginary borders that the whites slapped on our faces, that we keep, lingering with in our minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Remo. I'll take you on from your own submission. You said we need a self-reflection, and you've quoted all that happened. What is your self-reflection as of today, considering that you attended the last public lecture, you're here today, you've been a student leader? What is that reflection, starting from you?
Personally, I must tell you that growing up, I got to learn about Osajefo Kwame Nkrumah when I was in primary 5, and from that time, for all that decade, I've belonged to the Nkrumah school of thought. I must let you know that it is that enlightenment that I got to know, the privilege, the concession I had to know Kwame Nkrumah at a very tender age, that has contributed to the fact that I'm seated here and some other people are seated the other side. And I want you to know very well that during the time when I was a student leader at Makerere University, the chairperson of the university council is here. I made a petition to our office, being a person who looks up to an activist who is concerned with the question of the people in society. I petitioned the office of the chairperson University Council about the 15% tuition policy that was at the time very harsh on the students of Makerere University. And I can tell you there are developments that were made. We had a breath as a students' community. We have made different agitations about the general welfare of the students of Makerere University, but also the country at large. We have spoken on the key things, the evils in society, and for me, that is the block I want to throw on the chest of every young person in this house, that we shouldn't remain unbothered, like Comrade Roy Semboga put it, that if he had put a flyer for Mudra concert, he was going to receive more responses from the people. But since he put a conversation that is focusing on the key issues of society, on how we can mentor great leaders that can transform our continent going forward, he received only 2 comments. So that speaks to the fact that since last year we had a conversation and we had like only 50 people, today we have nearly, a full house here. And so the message is reaching to the people. And that's a contribution. A person needs to first have information before they can start acting. Decisions are made after someone has gotten information. So, and for me, I believe that we are making steady progress as a generation. The biggest burden we have is to ensure that we localize the concept of Pan-Africanism and preach it further to cascade to the roots of our society. And then we shall have an appreciation of what our great-grandfather Osajefo so very many decades ago, but still remains a dream and a slumber for very many young people.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to get back to you, Honorable Kabayo. You posed that question and asked, what makes our unity difficult? We are looking at the Pan-Africanism concept and wondering how best we can get it inculcated in almost everyone, right from an early age. Do you think we need a reconceptualization of that concept? Yes, yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think it all begins with you. When we talk about African unity, sometimes we forget to even look at base, home. In this Nkrumah Hall, today we are cheering Nkrumah, Nkrumah, Nkrumah. But I wonder how many of these students actually speak one language to Pan-Africanism. When you want to rebel, you start with your personal identity and interest instead of unifying the interest to make sense. Because I'll go a bit political. We are here cheering Comrade Kwame Nkrumah. But what he believed in and what he was pushing for, if you nationalized it, is it applicable? Do we have our own Nkrumah here in the names of President Museveni, who believed in the same ideologies like him, who believed in unity for all of us, who has mentored us? I think the second generation to them. And I'm very happy to be here between you and them, because that makes me the bridge. Let us try and nationalize the ideologies and know that what Kwame believed in is the same as what Museveni believes in today. But because Museveni is national, you'd rather sing Nkrumah, forgetting your own. Number two, if you cannot unify your village, your hall, your classroom, how are you going to unify Africa? And sometimes we get unified for the wrong reason. I've had my colleague here on the panel, Comrade Oremo, and whoever likes to be called Gen Z. I have no problem with Gen Z. And I'm one person who has pushed for the inclusion of the youth in the Pan-African Women Organization. But don't be Gen Z for the wrong reason. When it comes to destruction, the destruction that was done in Kenya in just a few hours, is that the Gen Z that believes in African unity? Does that building have a political alliance? Does that building have an issue with you or the other one who might use it tomorrow? And I'm not saying this because it was a Ugandan building, no. When we go to national issues, the roads, why should you demonstrate destroying a road? That feeling of destruction to express yourself is definitely not Kwame Nkrumah. There must be dialogue. There must be a better way to express yourself. If Kwame was as violent as our Gen Z today, I don't think we would have anything to say about him. So my call is that the unity that we are calling for now must have discipline. The unity, my Gen Z colleagues, must have commitment. And don't commit to destruction. Don't commit to isolation, but actually get the right definition of unity and implement it. When we talk about unity, are we considering the generations before us? For example, if I did not pick interest, maybe in my mother's teaching, I wouldn't have recognized the other women who were doing what I love to do today. And by the way, pick the best, pick the good out of someone, and even forget their identity. Because that, I'm sorry, because that identification of the nitty-gritties that are negative will only bring negative results. So let us have discipline, let us have commitment to each other. Oremo and your colleague, if you speak one language, this hall will be full. But speak one language for the good reason, not just for the sake of being seen or heard. You wanted to ask something?
Yes, if you could share with us what you're doing at the Pan-African Women Organization, just in brief, what you do there to advance. Several women here would like to know.
Yes, and beginning with you, you are very welcome. I'm glad that my sister at least knows what we do at the Pan-African Women Organization. The Pan-African Women Organization originally was a sister organization of the Pan-African movement. But like I said, because the movement was more male-dominated and because it was more on the front line and politicking, the women saw the space and gap and tried to fill them. And these women I'm talking about are not me, but actually people like Jamata Sise was among she was from Guinea, and she was among the first African women to join the UN. Then in Uganda concept, we talk about Mama Joyce Simpanga, Puublic Sosonkole, who was, I think, grandmother to the king today. We had people like Rebecca Mulira, Mama Sarah Ntiru in different sects. So after the decolonization of the continent, these women sank into the socio-economic sector to fill the bridge. And most of them actually turned out to be among the first women politicians we had. So today, me, the third generation now, but with people like Speciosa Kaziwe, who took up the mantle for the Beijing, we talk about the space and room for women to participate as number one. Actually, I've lied. Number one is peace and security. Peace and security is number one on our priority areas. Then, if I may pick the 7 priority areas, agriculture and environment. When we talk peace and security, the next is food security, and can't do without environment. We talk about health and education. We talk about regional integration, upholding the Pan-African patriotic ideologies. We go into economy, trade policy reforms. Today, when you see however much Uganda may still be demanding for visa, the few countries that have opened up are due to these women on the continent. We try to bridge the gaps. We try to engage. Most of the NGOs you see are more controversial and expressing themselves differently. We are more engaging, be it with the state or partners or whatever. We engage and we believe in seeing positive change peacefully. So the Pan-African Women Organization is a specialized agency of the African Union. We have offices in 6 regions, meaning the normal geographical regions of Africa, plus the diaspora, with offices in Pretoria, Addis Ababa, Mali, Algeria, Cameroon, and Uganda.
Interesting. Thank you very much. I turn to Semboga. You have had those efforts by the Pan-African Women Organization. There are other efforts in the East African community. We see more integration. We have seen more countries joining. We know there are efforts at the African Union level. There are things happening, yet we are still not there. What stops us, in your view? Where is the challenge?
Okay, I think Ms. Kaboyo tackled it a little bit when he was asking, okay, it's good for you to be the Gen Zs, but be the Gen Zs for the good reason. I'm going to go back to ideological anchoring. It is easy to gather a room here for an artist, to fill a room here for an artist, but it's not easy to have this room full for such meaningful conversation. It goes back when I'll refer so much to Ndugu Kwame Rugonda, because we have similar heads and I think I can muscle him in case we disagree. That's a joke. But I'm also, you know me, I am a product of Makere 311. I am constrained. I am between a rock and a hard place to certain things, but I think what would Kwame Nkrumah require me to say at this particular moment, and the spirit of activism, I would be compelled to say whatever I want to say, and I hope I don't offend anyone. The generations for Kwame Nkrumah, they had an opportunity to learn from the Dr. Dubois you've told us about. And once they handed the mantle onto them, they did this African continent justice. And they prepared the generation after them. That's how we got the Nyereres thereafter, I think. Unfortunately, the generations that came after that generation, the first and the second generations after them, they have done a very big disservice. They sacrificed the vision and the spirit of Pan-Africanism that Kwame Nkrumah taught to them at the altar of IMF and World Bank money. I think in the 1960s, IMF and World Bank came with an idea of neoliberalism. One, deregulate the economy. Two, privatize government enterprise. And then three, open up the markets for whoever. And I will ask Ms. Kawoyo, because I found somewhere and I wasn't able to verify, is it true that part of the AU headquarters in Ethiopia is sponsored by the Chinese? Is that true?
No, it's not true.
It's not true?
Absolutely not.
I found it.
The Chinese were contracted to construct the current building. But the first hall at the AU was built by Africans, 75% by Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, 20% by Nigeria, and the rest of the African countries contributed. The building today was built by the Chinese. If they offered a certain percentage, it was okay, but on contract. It was by the African people.
Kwame Nkrumah envisioned an Africa where African problems required African solutions crafted by Africans at a total number of percentage, 100% of the the contribution. It is a vote of no confidence in even the conversation we are having right now. If a particular degree of whatsoever sponsorship comes from the Chinese.
Semboga, let me not lose you. A discipline oye.
Oye.
A listening oye.
You
said, I don't want to lose you. You said there's a problem with ideological anchoring, and you seem to suggest that their generation has not mentored you to carry on the mantle and the vision of Kwame Nkrumah and all the other Pan-Africanists. You seem to suggest that they were hoodwinked by offers from the IMF, World Bank money, and that kind of thing. Do you have evidence to this, or is that just something you have? Because she has just challenged one of the things you have said about the building, and it's good that we hold conversation with facts.
We are all aware that most African governments run to either China, IMF, or World Bank for these loans. But this money comes with conditions. Part of the condition that this money carries, in a way, defeats the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Some of the conditions cannot allow these conversations to go on, does not facilitate. I can give an example. For example, most of us are products of UPE, isn't it? Most of us are products of UPE, isn't it? This is a World Bank program that its experts later on researched and concluded it was not beneficial to the Ugandan child because it was giving a basic minimum. Now, if you're talking about ideological anchoring, ideological anchoring takes lots of forms from homes, but even the formal education we are pertaining right now is also part of the ideological anchoring. Nduguru Gunda has told you here that they sat in Nkrumah Senior Common Room. That room is still present right now. And they decided that Nkrumah Hall shall be Nkrumah Hall. At a time when it was less fashionable to associate yourself with Nkrumah. He had just been overthrown and he was in another country. But because they had the opportunity to have these conversations, they would go on. Previously in Makerere, 4 or 5 students together, they would be served with suspension letters. There be measures that made such beautiful resolution, and that's why we are here. As we speak right now in Makerere, they are illegal. When I joined Makerere in 2011, we used to have rallies, or we used to have them, the Asumani Basalirwas, to come and talk to us. By then there was a campaign, Black Monday something, by Dr. Zachary Linje. They would come here freely and talk to us. Currently, it's no longer possible. I understand where management comes from. I've been part of a university council, that some of these activities have been vulgarized. But I'll tell you, I am a doctor. I don't cut off my head if I have a headache. I treat it. So if there are challenges with such platforms that gave this country the likes of Dr. Rugunda, we should encourage those platforms so that we are able to ideologically anchor the young generation. So that if they are pushing to unite for the right cause, they unite around the right cause. But because we are ideologically bankrupt, for us we think burning a building sends more. You know how the weak fight? People say that once you are short of ideas, you flex. You flex.
All right,
so
thank you.
my point is that we need to reorient the young generation. The people who were there before us still have a duty and responsibility to speak to the young generation. When I was guild president in this university, as I conclude,
Okay.
it was unheard of to find the chairperson of council in a gathering like this one. For the time I was guild president, the chairperson in council would only meet at council or when you are resolving a strike. It is a step in the right direction. If we can have administration involved in this conversation so that they can understand that this generation is not completely lost, there is still hope. I am sure from this conversation you would be eager to have another and support ideas that come from students. You never know, cell by cell, brick by brick, we may be able to build the Gen Z that we are going to be proud of. We shall not wait for Uganda, Rwanda to unite. We can start uniting from an individual level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I see your hand is up. You're burning. You want to...
Yeah, thank you so much. I beg to agree with Sembogo on one or two issues. And this is a true sign that actually, in spite of the age difference, we might have something in common. We might agree on one or two things. Therefore, no need for flex yet, and should never be there. What I believe in is engagement, discussion. Let me share this as a mother. You will, I don't know, but maybe I pray that you don't grow to experience what we are experiencing. The times are so different, that things have changed, and people have changed, and the modes have changed. To an extent that you get home and sit together, but each one is on phone. And if you're not on phone, you are in your room. And the time to engage and share our experiences is not there. That is one big problem that we need to address together. Number two, our paces are different. Sembogo, the way you move now, I used to move a few years ago. I cannot move at that pace now. Therefore, even the things that we do cannot be done at the same time. The technology, the world is moving faster. So all I'm asking this gathering here today, let us start by making moments, not even time, but moments together, moments for each other. However little it is, you will get something constructive and ideologically strong in those few moments. And we shall begin to appreciate one another. You will appreciate the challenges I'm facing, and I will appreciate yours. The problem is communication, moments, time together, with an open mind, not prejudiced, not judgmental, but to engage each other and understand one another's challenges and try to address them. Number two, where I agree with him, IMF World Bank. I'm very sure that if we could reverse time, and my brother, my senior Ndugu here would agree with me. I was a young girl, a student in Nairobi in external, and used to look forward to the Times at a shop behind 680 to catch up on news. And the program that the current government had then, if Sembogo had had that program, would have been the first cadre to join the ladder. But times change, and influencers, today you call influencers big people. What are they influencing? their own vision. And before you know it, because of numbers, you go along. Now, when we got here, the IMF, World Bank, believe you me, has done more troubles. But at the same time, we don't want to pay the taxes. So where does the money come from? Let us sit. Let us engage, okay? And you don't need to be political to engage and discuss these things. Politics is too good to be left to politicians alone. And that is why Ndugu Rugunda is very popular. Very popular. Why? Because politics takes its time, and humanity and people engagement takes their time. Let's make that time and moments to engage and choose what is good for all of us. Let's not judge. We have given too much power to the politicians, which they don't deserve. Engage them. Go for them. Bring the issues, and let's try to address them together. That is what power chooses to do. Come and join us.
Thank you very much. That's a good note for you to end at. I'll ask you to give your parting remarks. Our time is fast spent. Partly addressing the ideological gap that your colleague has pointed out too, and then her call.
Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator. I think the issue that Comrade Roy Semboga brings on the question of ideology is something very serious, particularly even here at Makerere University. Because if you look at the time when Chief Ndugu, Dr. Rwakana Rugunda, and his colleagues sat in an ACR meeting and made a resolution that new hall should henceforth be called Nkrumah Hall, it brings out clearly the kind of orientation that the students of that time had, the kind of interest they had in the affairs affecting the country but also the continent. Because I can tell you, if we had people who are ideologically oriented, probably at a point like this one, we wouldn't be having students residing in a hall called University Hall, probably. When we had a time when Magufuli was very serious in the continent doing very great things, probably would be having a group of young people who sat down and said, today going forward, we shouldn't have a hall called Complex Hall. We should have Sankara Hall. We should have Magufuli Hall. So the issue of ideological clarity is the issue of ideological clarity is a very serious issue, and for me, I think that the leadership of Nkrumah Hall has set the pace for all of us as stakeholders of this country, and going forward, we should utilize the resources we have available to us, like having the privilege of having Dr. Rwakana Rugunda come here and fine-tune the generation. I can tell you the speech Right Honorable Rugunda gave this afternoon was very, very polished, and it was one of the key fundamental stones that we are laying today to the progress of having a generation, breeds of Makerere University that are ideologically oriented, but also having clarity on the direction and the trajectory that the African continent should take. I am full of confidence that the majority of the people here in this house will move out knowing what is expected of a young person of this generation, a young lady of this generation. What should we do to foster, to push the dreams? Because one of the challenges that Pan-Africanism is facing is that it has remained lingering in the cloud with very few people to carry out the mantle, to carry on the mantle that the great Osajefos did, the Abdel Gamel Nassers did, the Hastings Kamuzu Bandas did, the Jomo Kenyatas did, and the Rugundas of our time did. At least these are the few that our generation probably might have a chance to interact with physically, but we didn't get a chance to see the Thomas Sankaras physically. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In 1 minute, your parting words, Semboga. In 1 minute, your last remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. I had the opportunity to share with colleagues here. They had 2 comments on my social media platform. The first comment I shared, I want to use this opportunity to share the second comment. Yes, the second comment came from a colleague, and he's in this room. Robert, I saw him somewhere. I don't know if it's Robert is not a Makerere student. He's a colleague we work with in the informal sector. His comment was, I want to know those things. Am I allowed to come in Makerere University? And I'm glad he's here. So in the previous conferences or whatever, maybe we are focusing on Makerere University students, we are focusing on the elite. I am glad to tell you that the information we are giving from here is going out to the world. But I also want to tell the Gen Z, because first of all, time was on our side, we are going to live longer, and the rate of Pan-Africanism benefit us directly and the kids that are going to come from us. Colleagues, we need to understand that 40% of the world energy from the rivers of the world comes from Africa. We have a lot of potential. I can tell you that African forests have the finest wood you can ever find all over the world. We have the biggest arable land across the globe. In other words, Africa has its potential. It is very important and prudent to all of us to understand that the unity of Africa is a benefit to us and a strategic danger to the so-called first-class countries. So the first-class countries will not allow, do not give it to us to have the African continent united. But we must fight, we, the Africans, we, the young generations, we, the now generation, to ensure that the African unity is a reality. I am convinced that there is hope, there is steps in the right directions if you're having this conversation that involve everyone. And from where I sit, for me, I see a future of endless possibilities stretching upon all of us. And if only you could sense, as I sense, that the time is right now, we shake off our slumber, slow off our fear, and we do what is ought to be done, we are going to make Africa proud. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And your 1 minute parting remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And his speech the winding up has really encouraged me. Thank you very much, because you've literally agreed that we all need to play our part. It takes you and I. Now, when it comes to power, allow me to use this opportunity to announce that we were actually supposed to launch our Makerere branch today. But when we were told about Nkrumah, we said no. Let us go together in unity and recognize the Nkrumah Hall, and then we pick another day for power launch for Makerere. And I'm sure you'll all be informed after we have engaged with our leadership here, and it will be soon, hopefully before the end of this month. I would also like to announce that we actually have chapters in every university in Uganda, but we also have chapters in our local community. The market women, the rural women and men, of course, and the fact that we are called Pan-African women doesn't mean we've closed doors to the male. They are very, very welcome, and they are part of us. Maybe I use this opportunity to thank the organizers, the Kwame Nkrumah Hall, the leadership that decided to do this today, are partners automatically, and we'll be happy to work. Not to mention my senior comrade. You make us proud. We look unto you all the time, and thank you for making yourself available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to end it here, but I will, kindly. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, there's been an allegation here. There's been an allegation here that there's a kind of stifling of speech around Makerere.
I would suggest we don't do that now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right then. Thank you, panelists. You may take your seats.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alina, for the excellent moderation. Ndugu, once again, through these two plus Kwame, the revolution has an opportunity to thrive and go on. Such excellent articulation of the vision of the future and the society we have in today. Chairman, so members, I know if I say what I'm going to say, you might cut off my leg, but I'm going to ask the chairman to make this suggestion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musi. The communication I'm going to make is a simple one. In the interest of time, we are about to close. But on Sunday, we are organizing a mega feast for the activists. So we call upon each and everyone who will be around to be part. We shall have bull roasting and even other logistics. So in the interest of time,
I think what the chairman didn't do is, in apology to ending, I know you want still the conversation to go on, so we are suggesting that we can support the chairman to continue this discussion on Sunday so that we can even bring some of the senior colleagues to engage with you over logistics and some bull roasting as we continue to celebrate the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah. So it's my pleasure now to invite the chair of the University Council, Mrs. Lona Magara, to give her closing remarks as we conclude this program. Thank you very much for your attention.
What an afternoon. Hasn't it been very, very invigorating? The Right Honorable Dr. Hakana Rugunda, Prime Minister Emeritus of the Republic of Uganda, and the Special Envoy for His Excellency the President, Major General Henry Masiko, UPDF Chief Political Commissar, Honorable Dr. Grace Kawayo, my sister, the Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Buyinza, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration, Professor Henry Alineitwe, the Dean of Students, Dr. Winnie Kabumbuli, the staff and students of Makerere University, special recognition to the leadership of Nkrumah Hall, all the great alumni present and online, distinguished dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today we gather to honor the legacy of an extraordinary African, the father of Pan-Africanism, the late President Kwame Nkrumah. Now, this is not just a celebration, as has been very ably discussed this afternoon, but a reaffirmation of our commitment to the ideals he stood for. We honor these great men and women who sacrificed so much for us to be free and to live with hope and dignity. Prime Minister Emeritus Dr. Rugunda, it's a great honor to welcome you back to your alma mater, and especially to be received by Nkrumah Hall residents. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with our young people and sharing your inspiring experiences and wisdom. Thank you too, Major General Henry Masiko, for the insights and perspectives shared regarding the legacy and transgenerational impact of the life of Kwame Nkrumah. As we have heard, Kwame Nkrumah was a great and charismatic man who inspired the fight for independence for Africa. His vision for a politically united, economically independent, and socially equitable Africa is an ideal we must integrate into our educational culture, social and political environments. Today we learned of Kwame Nkrumah's tremendous influence on our guest of honor and how he inspired the change of name from New Hall to Nkrumah Hall. Listening to these stories of the old times at Makerere through the lenses of our guest of honor, the Right Honorable Rugunda, and our discussant, Major General Masiko, reaffirms the importance of intergenerational conversations to inspire the young generation to live by conviction and for a greater cause. This, again, has been amplified by the panelists. This is a growing and urgent need to prioritize these conversations, where values and norms are communicated from one generation to another. The recent population census statistics recorded that 45.9 million Ugandans, out of which 73% are under 17, and only 5% are above 60. This is an incredible statistic. If I was to ask those who are above 60 in this room to raise their hands, it would be absolutely clear that, that these statistics are true. And therefore, it's an incredible opportunity and also a challenge to influence the most significant percentage of the population. I'm throwing this challenge to myself, but also to my elders here, that we have a great opportunity to influence the next generation. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why this engagement of bringing our esteemed alumni back to engage with current students is of great importance. The idea of passing on values and knowledge from the old to the young through conversations and storytelling, like we used to do in the past, is the heart of this effort. Thank you, Dean of Students, Dr. Puublic, for encouraging the students to organize this activity. Thank you. In this age of internet, cultures and attitudes of the young generation are shaped on social media, and mostly to the detriment of their mental and social well-being. We will therefore continue to prioritize mentorship and training young people, our students, towards purposeful living. I'm particularly delighted to note that our students, specifically the chairperson, the chairman of Nkrumah Hall and his team, they're the ones who initiated this activity through hard work to make sure that these conversations take place. Please continue to be inquisitive about our history, the history of our continent, and about the legacies of the great men and women who led its independence, and shaped the society we have today. We will do well to learn from history. Once again, I express my deepest gratitude to our distinguished alumni, Right Honorable Hakana Rugunda and Major General Masiko, for the engaging and insightful discussions. I want to thank the panelists, Honorable Grace Kabayo, Mr. Oremo Oduke, and Mr. Roy Semboga. Thank you for being passionate. You could pick the passion in their conversations. Thank you for being passionate for the cause that, and the ideals of Nkrumah, which we are all discussing this afternoon. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to engage. And maybe just to quickly respond to a matter that Mr. Semboga raised, that students no longer have an opportunity to gather and to discuss. I have your president, he was here a short while ago. He will attest to it. We have begun having what we call a choto, where we are having young people, university students, come around to discuss these matters. Yes, there was a time when the gatherings were stopped, and for a reason. And the reason is we were spiraling out of control to a point where we lost a life, a student's life. Now, when violence takes over, like was earlier discussed, to a point where we bury one of our own, then there has to be a rethinking of the methods of gathering. And that's what initiated that. But now the space has gradually begun to be opened up once again. So in light of that, and I want to propose again already, I think we have, matters have overtaken, the events have been overtaken by the fact that this conversation is going to continue on Sunday. But I had a proposal in my notes. You'd have thought that we had had a discussion. I have a proposal that from this discussion, we have a choto, the fireplace discussion, and where we will now begin to articulate, together with our elders, what do we need to do to actualize the ideals of Kwame Nkrumah and his colleagues who led to this. We have to bridge the gap. Mr. Kwame Rugunda talked about passing on the baton. And we heard that Kwame Nkrumah picked the baton from his elders. Kwame Nkrumah passed the baton to the first generation. That first generation passed the baton to the generation of Ndugu Rugunda. Ndugu Rugunda is passing on the baton from what we've heard to General Masiko. General Masiko would like, I believe, he's been doing it. Yes, he has. So there has to be a passing on of the baton. Now, what we have here is an opportunity to have these discussions. We may not fully appreciate what the Gen Zs deal with. And therefore, we have to come into their world to appreciate that and then begin to answer questions, and then we can begin to discuss, okay, we have these values, we have this situation. What do we need to do to pass on those ideals? And therefore, I'd like to challenge the leadership, student leadership, together with the management, to organize for this choto, where we can invite our elders again, maybe with their colleagues, that can be discussed, where we can now discuss the passing on of the baton of these ideals. How can this passion for a cause that is beyond us be inculcated in our young people so that they are not passionate about self-motivated ideas, but are passionate about something that is beyond them, that they too, in their times, will leave a legacy. So thank you very much, each one of you, for coming to this meeting where we've had this very invigorating discussion. Your presence here is a testament to your commitment to the shared cause of preserving and promoting Kwame Nkrumah's legacy. Thank you all, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, the Chair of Council. I'm going to request our guest of honor to join the Chair of Council, Major General Matsiko, our Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor. Would like to invite you, and the Chairman, and the Dean of Students, of course. Would like to invite you on stage. Primarily, I think it's what's going to take place is a symbol of appreciation again of bringing back alumni by just giving you a little bit of items which will continue to rekindle your memories of Makere. Yeah. So, Chair, maybe you can explain these gifts to the guest of honor. Okay, I can help.
All right, this is the symbol of this hat is that these matters that we discuss here not just stay here, but they protect your mind and head and heart and everything that's in you, that you'll be able to pass it on to the next generation. So keep safe, keep safe. And this, of course, are the colors of the Makerere University, and we trust that you will use this wherever you go. Last but definitely not least, 2 years ago, we had Makerere at 100 celebrated, and this, we came up with, we have a record of 100 years of Makere's history, some of the highlights. We trust that this will give you an insight into what happened through the 100 years. Yes. So thank you, Honorable, Right Honorable Rugunda. Thank you. Yes.
Chair, we have a small gesture, the chairman.
Yes, absolutely. He would like to. There you go. So the chairman, Nkrumah Hall, robs the Right Honorable Dr. Rugunda. Alumni of Nkrumah Hall. A form of a passing on of the baton. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Return the favor. Okay, the Right Honorable is returning the favor. All right, thank you very much.
Request the Vice Chancellor to present these gifts.
Oh, yeah, sure. Are they
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Major General Henry Masiko, it is our pleasure. It's our as a symbol. It's our pleasure to give you this small token as a symbol of appreciation of the good work you do. We are proud of you. Continue doing that for humanity as we build it for the future. Thank you. This tie also is our identity, and also it symbolizes the preservation of heritage we built over years. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So at this point, we'd like to invite a few other people to join us for the photographs. I don't know if Robert Maseruka, if he's still here, or the guild president. The panelists, I would like to invite the panelists to join the photo. Yeah. And I also take the opportunity to recognize Mr. Mikhail Singh, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Ian Clark University. I think he's been here since the beginning, and unfortunately we didn't take note of that. But we do recognize and appreciate you being here. Yes, yeah. Yeah, we also recognize Mr. Charles Kahinjiriza. Mr. Charles Kahinjiriza is the Secretary for Ndeje University. We'd like to appreciate your being here, and also as a former resident of Nkrumah Hall. So we'd like to invite the two gentlemen as well to join the photo. No. So I'm going to propose that, how do we do this? Yeah. Okay. So, okay, so, no, because I'm not sure whether we can all fit. Robert, 2 lines. Or we can just have 2 group photos, actually. Maybe the rest can first step aside, and we have the guest of honor, chair of council, and the leadership of the university, and the chairman, and the dean of students. Okay. This, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, chairman, you can. Thank you. Yeah. Dean of, okay, Dean of Students. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. This is serious. Yeah. Okay, so this way we can actually, the man actually behind this, which is Mr. Rodney Rujema, who has been really incredible in mobilizing and supporting the students, is here. We appreciate you. Yeah. Okay, and performing arts, please come and we do the last anthem. Yeah, as we do the photos. So thank you so much. You can take back your seats. Thank you. Yeah, and after we do the anthems, the guest of honor and the other guests will walk down to the Great Hall, the Nkrumah Hall, where we'll do some other few activities which are awaiting us there. So after here, we can move down to the Great Hall. So performing arts, please. Can you stand up for the anthems, please?
Great Britain.